there was a big future in electrical cars, so that's why I wanted to do engineering. But I realized the engineering is not very practical in nature, especially when you go back to India. You wouldn't believe it. Like, I'm a supply chain consultant without taking any supply chain course in my life. Like, I've done my master's with zero supply chain courses. I don't have any supply chain specific certification. Generally, I think one of the most underrated skills interns that don't have is
How do you think AI and automation is going to reshape supply chain management in upcoming years? And
top organizations spending insane amount of money in developing tools which can help make decisions or drive decisions in a certain way, right? Yeah, I
but
think most of us think, yeah, it's like, let's do an engineering and then we can figure out what to
figure
do.
out things. Yeah.
There was a major luck factor involved in this. I think
Yeah.
there was somewhere in the universe which was telling me
Yeah.
that supply chain, and I just it's worked out. Networking is very important. I got my EY job through networking. Like, somebody referred me in there. You can't get such connections if you're just sitting in your room and just like
True.
relaxing with your roommates.
If you could go back and give yourself one piece of advice to your as a student, what would it be?
Man, so many different things.
Namaste and welcome to Deep Diving with Samyak Jain, your go-to podcast for insightful conversation on supply chain strategies, career growth, and the inspiring journeys of industry leaders. Today, I am thrilled to introduce our guest, Gagan Dev Prabhu, a seasoned supply chain consultant with over 7 years of experience driving procurement, transformation, optimizing operations, and implementing cutting-edge automation solutions. Currently a senior consultant at EY. In this episode, we will dive into Gagan's career story, his strategies for overcoming complex supply chain challenges, and actionable advice for young professionals. So grab your chai, sit back, and get ready for another conversation on Deep Diving with Samyak Jain. So first of all, thank you, Gagan, for joining us today. It's very helpful for you to come and join us and share your story with other individuals out there. So thank you so much.
You're welcome, Samyak, and I'm really happy to be here and provide any
Yeah,
insights that I can give to the
sure.
audience.
Yeah. Like basically, can you share your journey from studying at NIT Warangal to becoming a senior consultant in EY? So how was your total journey? How you did it? What you did different from others, which set you apart?
In ID Warangal, I did engineering, so I did electrical and electronics engineering. While doing engineering, I took up electrical because I was passionate about cars. I think most guys are, and that's the reason
Yeah.
why we take up. I know most people go mechanical, but I thought there was a big future in electrical cars, so that's why I wanted to do engineering. But I realized the engineering is not very practical in nature, especially when you go back to India, right? So it's more
Correct.
very theoretical. There's not much like in terms of understanding or being taught, there's a lot very different, and you need to be in a certain understanding of like the historical knowledge before you even like get to know
Correct.
core electrical items that will actually impact automobiles. So I realized that wasn't a path that I want to take down.
Yeah.
I was considering it till like pretty much mid of my engineering, and then after that I realized maybe this is not. One of the nice courses that I had in my undergrad was accountancy, and
Yeah.
part of accountancy we had economics as well, and I realized very early on that that is something I really like and I understand. And I thought, yeah, maybe this was something that could be a career path, but I was still very young. I won't say I had decided how it was going to
Yeah.
go. Campus placements happened. I got into Capgemini. Capgemini, it was a pure, pretty much like a coding consultant role. I started off developing ERP systems. I took that job up thinking, yeah, if coding is an opportunity that most individuals from engineering go into, and why not? Let's do it.
Correct.
Quickly realized that even though I was pretty good at it, especially Java, PLSQL, that's what we were using to develop ERP systems,
Okay.
it was not something that made me wake up on a Monday morning and go to work.
Correct.
I started exploring other things. Meanwhile, at work as well, since we were having a few client interactions, we were offshore and we were helping them develop the onshore modules. The manager felt like it was a good opportunity for me to get some client requirement. In that process, I realized I have a good knack of like dealing with clients, understanding their requirements and translating. That's when I realized maybe there is a scope for me to become a techno-functional consultant. And that's where I started taking steps towards maybe getting in more towards a techno-functional consulting. I applied for a few roles in consulting from Capgemini for core consulting. I didn't get because to get into consulting, you need experience. And to have experience, you need to be in consulting. So it's a vicious loop that everyone talks about.
Yeah.
Got an opportunity at a startup called Casa One, where I did business analysis. I worked as a business analyst for some time, and I think that's where I broke into understanding that, hey, I have a natural knack towards understanding business growth, revenue, how to drive organization, how to make strategic decisions. That's when I was like, yeah, I think I need to pivot my career towards that. And staying in India, I don't think I was going to get that opportunity if I didn't go to a bigger B school. And very honestly, I didn't want to get into that system where I knew how the education system works and I wanted to try something new. And I'd heard good things about the education system here. So I did an intensive research and I decided to come to Northeastern. I would say it was one of my top five choices to come here.
Yeah.
And it was solely based on two things. There's a couple of professors I really wanted to take courses under. One of them is Klosterman, other one Syed Nurian.
Yeah.
Very specific courses that I really liked. So I decided to do engineering management. And the reason why I chose MS was I just wanted to see whether I can pivot into consulting from here. If not, and if I get into consulting, if I don't like it, I wanted to have another option of doing an MBA if
Correct.
that's the case. So yeah, came to do my master's, specialized in economics, took all of my courses under finance and economics, got an internship at Dell, worked there for like almost 7 months, then got a full time there, was there for
Yeah.
for a year or so in their supply chain, in their raw procurement team. And then post that, got an offer from EY in their supply chain and operations consulting team. And that's where I've been there since then.
Definitely, I think that's what we most of the people when we do our bachelor's in core engineering we feel in India. It's like I did civil engineering in India, and like I was excited when I joined, but after 2 years when I started doing internships and all those, I was like, no, that's the field I can't go into because I. So definitely that's how we pivot. So thanks for
Yeah,
sharing.
I
But
think most of us think, yeah, it's like, let's do an engineering and then we can figure out what to
figure
do.
out things. Yeah. For me, my reason was like my father used to do some of the work related to that. So I was like, I can help them on those processes. So yeah. So I heard that you said like you did your bachelor's in electrical and now you're in supply chain. So like when you get your job in Dell or in supply chain basically or EY. So how does your past experiences, past work, how it helped getting you into supply chain from a different background you had in engineering?
Right. So I can easily sit here and say I planned all of this out, but I won't.
Okay.
There was a major luck factor involved in this. So the first job that I got in Capgemini, I was developing ERP modules very specific to supply chain and finance. At
Okay.
that time, very honestly, I didn't know what this is. Like
Okay.
even developing modules for like a bill of materials, even developing like what's the difference between like a PO module or an AP module and or a PR module is those kind of
Correct.
things. I didn't know what was actually happening, but I just got in there by like some weird thing that happened that where I got placed over there. Then when I got into the startup as well, I was a business analyst for their warehouse. So somewhere I was doing understanding their product which was incoming and how do we position it better. So somehow I was always around the supply chain side of things. You wouldn't believe it, like I'm a supply chain consultant without taking any supply chain course in my life. Like I've
Right.
done my masters with zero supply chain courses. I don't have any supply chain specific certification. All I have is work in jobs where I have done supply chain. Dell
Understood.
as well. They want like when I went into the interview for my co-op, I was very clear that I wanted an maybe like an internal facing role where I'm driving strategies, where I'm driving efficiencies. For some reason, it aligned perfectly that their supply chain team wanted somebody who could look at their efficiencies, bring up digital changes, look at their inventory day over day, and try to come up with new strategies that can like make their organization work more
Yeah.
efficient. It worked out really well. The co-op went really well, got a full time there as well. So within that, I realized that once I got into Dell, and I think that was a little late realization, but I think at that time I realized I think I'm like a supply chain person. Like I understand it really well.
Yeah.
Everyone else is understanding that. It took me some time for me to figure out, yeah, I think that's what I like doing and I'm good at doing it. And then I truly enjoy supply chain. Like
Yeah.
and I wanted to become a consultant and I thought that's a career that I want to go into. So that's how I ended up. And I think EY came at the right time. So I decided to like take up consulting with them. Initially, I was thinking other consulting as well, mergers and acquisition, risk. Those were the things I
Yeah.
was thinking. But yeah, I think supply chain was something that was been there throughout my past. And then I just
Correct.
decided to go with it. Yeah.
Yeah. You didn't knew that you were going to do this, but your past made you to go
Yeah.
through toward that
I
way.
think there was somewhere in the universe which was telling me
Yeah.
that supply chain. And I just sometimes you have to, right? You just have to listen to
Correct.
what's happening around and like fall in place with it. You can't like force out yourself out of it. And of course, I really like it. That's the thing. Like if it was something like coding where I didn't enjoy it and I decided to take it up just because I'm in those kind of jobs, that would have been very different. But I truly enjoy being in supply chain. It's something that drives me. It's something that I'm passionate about. I love reading articles. Love reading things, what's happening in the world. So yeah, it's worked out.
Yeah, definitely. So you have worked on procurement transformations and automation. So what do you think students or professionals who are entering in this field should focus on to excel in those areas?
I think folks entering supply chain, when I talk to a lot of people, especially the younger ones, they see supply chain very broadly. They're like, how do I get into supply chain? And I don't think that's an answer you should be asking somebody. I think you should be first trying to figure out which part of supply chain that you want to get into. Supply chain is divided into multiple different parts in its own. So it's like whether you want to be in manufacturing, do you enjoy being on the shop floor, whether it's logistics, do you like the operational part of it where it's all the way from transportation to warehousing? Do you want to be in procurement where you're actually negotiating, maintaining relationships with your suppliers? Do you want to be in planning where you're actually deep diving in tools and trying to do some kind of predictive analysis to come up with what your resources should be? Or do you want to be in like end-to-end supply chain where you're overseeing all of these functions but not deep diving in? So I think that's very important to understand as individuals where you would like to be, and post that answering the question of whether you want to be in procurement or whether you want to be digital transformation would be very easy. But very honestly, digital transformation is happening across the board. So I think there is a module of where you need to understand technology and what's happening in the space regardless of where you get it.
Okay, yeah, definitely, yeah. Because many people just think supply chain as one, and they think like I just want to get into any supply chain role that I want. But definitely, like there are so many different roles within when we go into
Yeah.
supply chain, and when we move from one career to another, we see a
Yeah.
lots of drastic
Yeah,
change.
you can be in core supply chain, right? You can
Yeah,
be a procurement guy, you can be a commodity manager, category manager where you're interacting, or be a supply chain manager where you're like interacting with your
yeah,
suppliers, or you're assigned a certain set of supplies, certain set of products, certain set of commodities that you're dealing with. Yeah, that's a path. But some people want to have be a supply chain analyst. That's a very different path where you're like building out like dashboards, KPIs, BIs for
yeah,
like your team. So that's a very different path again. Like now you can't have a midpoint where you're doing this and that. Now, of course, there are a few organizations which offer it, but having that clear strategy that I want to be on the people side where it's client facing, or I want to be inward where you're helping supply chain teams give out better results. So
correct.
that's a decision you have to make based on the skills that you have. So if you enjoy being in front of clients, yeah, take up client facing roles. If you don't enjoy being in front of people, you like working in silos, but you like supply chain, take up like an analyst role where you're like churning out results for the team that is being client
Correct.
facing.
So while I was going through LinkedIn, I saw that you did Lean Six Sigma Green Belt certification. So how did your Lean Six Sigma Green Belt certifications help in your career, and would you recommend similar certifications to other?
Very honestly, I rarely talk about it, to be frank. Like even in my, I think it's one of the things I put on my resume after I've done it. And even in, I don't remember the last time there was a conversation that popped up even in my interviews as well.
Okay.
But it's very honestly, it gives you a theoretical understanding of like how the lean concepts work, how Six Sigma should be applied in your day-to-day basis. Like for example, when you look at process, how can you make it more efficient? How can you cater it towards your organization? How can you cater it towards the needs of your surrounding organization, your dependencies, your independencies, right? Like it teaches theoretical concepts, which is really good. It you can apply it directly in your work, as it just gives you a little bit of an head start. But very honestly, especially being a consultant who goes to different clients, who looks at different organizations, I think there's a lot of learning that happens on the job which can't be replicated with any kind
Correct.
of coursework or theoretical certifications that happen. Like it'll give you a head start, maybe like a 2% or a 5%, but at the end of the day, every job or every opportunity is very different. If you have a lot of time, would recommend taking up certificates, take up courses, do YouTube. There's a lot of free content out there, like
Correct.
especially in this age, it's like you Google and you can find so much free content, articles, even this podcast, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of like things like this which you can go and listen to and like understand. So very honestly, you don't have to be like the certification adds value to your resume. If you have the relevant job experience and you can speak to it and you can make that logical connection, I think that should be helpful. If you have time, it's a no brainer. If you're not doing anything, go and get a certification. It does definitely give you a head start, but otherwise it's not something that you should break your bank or break your head over.
So like from which organization you did that, and like around how much did it cost so that people can understand?
I did it for free. uh,
Okay,
Capgemini sponsored my green belt certification. So
understood.
that's the reason why I picked it up, right? So it
Yeah,
was I was not paying for it, but at that time, I believe it was like $100, $150. I'm talking about 6 years ago, 6, 7 years ago. But then that was like fully paid by Capgemini. If you had certain performance KPIs that you were hitting, they would like cover it for you. Since I was still working, it took me a solid 3 months to like actually go through it and complete the whole module and certification. But overall, again, as I said, it's not something that as soon as somebody sees over there, they're like, we have a green belt, we'll give you a job. I don't think so. It's more around what have you learned from it and how can you apply it, and whether if you already have some thought process around it which you can relate back to whether you're doing like a part-time job or a full-time job or an internship, you can speak to it. It doesn't matter that this is going to be the differential factor over there.
definitely understood. So, like as someone who has mentored supply chain interns, like in your past roles you have done, so what common skills or gaps have you noticed in fresh graduates?
You want like skills or you want gaps? Two different things.
I will say, like, just give a gist of both, or like basic gist, so that people can understand like how which skills they need to work on and how they can improve themselves. So, like, you can take it as two different questions.
Right. Okay. So skills, right, which really impress. I'll take it that way. Right.
Yeah,
So generally, I think one of the most underrated skills interns that don't have is listening. I think a lot of people don't listen clearly or don't pay attention when things are being onboarded initially or when things are being explained at the start process. There's a lot of excitement that you're at an intern, but the ability to quickly listen, understand what the ask is, and translate it and give results is a skill that is absolutely essential. And I see a lot of people not able to do that really quickly. There might be multiple different reasons, but that is very important, right? The ability to, as soon as you get in and as soon as you start reporting to somebody, your 2 weeks onboarding is done. Third week onwards, when they give you like clear instructions that this is what your task should be, you ask questions right there and then. If you have doubts, if you don't understand, you ask it there, or you come back a day or two later and ask those questions. You can't be asking those questions on how I should be doing it 4 or 6 weeks later when you should have been doing that clearly for. So listening is a very underrated skill that I've seen that people don't have on a generalistic way. The other one, which I've seen successful people have, is strong Excel skills. Like those I've seen who have done really well. Everyone says they have Excel skills, right?
yeah,
But as soon as you jump on a call with them, I tell them to create a pivot table. I start telling them to apply filters. Everything suddenly like, I don't know how to do it or I'm not able to pull it out. But the strong ones are quickly able to pick up those skills and like translate it. They can like I can give them any kind of sheet and they'll quickly be able to like pull up results, bring me a chart, tell me what the number is. So for example, as an intern, a lot of times it's going to be you giving some kind of data or some kind of cleaning up or some kind of insight to somebody you're reporting to, right? And they'll ask you very specific questions, like for an X product, what is the Y or what is the ABC metrics that is driving this? So you should be quickly able to filter out the X product and give those ABC metrics that I'm asking, right? If you're not able to do that, it takes you like half a day to get back those metrics. Like, and these are skills that can very easily be picked up. It's all filtering. Like it's literally Control F or Command F, whichever system
correct.
you're using. And then after that, like clearly just choosing which level you want to go to, or just create a pivot table and just choose which filters you want to go to and understand how do you present the report, how do you throw out. So I think those are the two things that I would say, like as supply chain folks, that I've seen that are skills which differentiate between a very successful candidate, like who've done really well at their internships or who've not done so well at their internship.
Correct. So, how do you think AI and automation is going to reshape supply chain management in upcoming years, and how people who are just going to be in supply chain can get themselves like set up for that?
I think AI is going to be very pivotal, right? And especially Gen AI, like conversational AI, where you can like give some kind of input and get an output answer from it. I think that's going to be very critical. There is a lot of organizations, top organizations, spending insane amount of money in developing tools which can help make decisions or drive decisions in a certain way, right? Supply chain historically has been an organization which has been ignored. I'm talking like 10, 15 years ago.
Correct.
There's a lot of organizations didn't even look at supply chain as a function that drove any kind of efficiency or drove revenue. Now they are firstly, over the last 10, 15 years, there has been a change, especially since COVID happened, the shift in the industry, when they realize that choke point supply chain actually adds value, where your revenue will be affected if you're not maintaining your supply chain well. That's when a lot of organizations realize we need to like put more effort and understand and like build processes around it and invest more money, give more insight into this. But over time, supply chain still remains as an Excel based or a offline based. Yeah, it still feels like a Excel based organization, but technology is changing that very rapidly. Every day there's new kinds of technology. So for example, like I'll give two quick examples. Category management, right? Generally, when you manage a certain category, let's say you're managing a category for just peripherals, so hardware peripherals, so cables, mouses, whatever, right? Now, as a category manager, one thing that's very difficult for you to understand is which vendors, which contracts are expiring, which contracts are up for renewal, what is my payment terms, like where am I losing, where is the efficiencies that I can bring in, where my clauses are not standard, where I'm losing a lot of value. AI, they're developing a lot of tools, especially in category management, which will, instead of you pulling an Excel sheet every time looking at which contracts are expiring, as soon as you type in, say, hey, which of my contracts are expiring, instantly gives you results saying that, hey, these are your X amount of contracts expiring, these are the dates when
Correct.
it's expiring, so that you can get your head start of 30, 60, 90 days of when you can negotiate it. So AI is definitely coming in there. More stronger tools, especially around planning, being able to do more predictive analysis, being able to like clearly bring down those seasonal variabilities that come into your modeling and make sure that the number is more cruncher than what it used to be. There is lesser assumptions, clear dependencies that are being added into the model so that you can come up with better strategies. A lot of things. In something that's gaining a lot of traction is intake tools. So basically, one point, one source for all users to enter so that they can request any kind of purchase, and it routes them to the right user based on the requirement. So all driven by AI. There's some modeling that is happening in the background that is helping them. Or simple things like chatbots, where people who are doing their jobs, they're able to quickly go in and ask questions and get answers, whether it's policy related procedures, FAQs, SOPs, any of those, right? So they're quickly able to go in and get answers, where otherwise previously you would have to read 60, 90 pages to figure out like what should be my procedure to do certain buy or create a certain commodity.
So, like, as you said, like how it's going to transform our industry for sure. Like now, how can someone prepare to be ahead in this game? Like, what thing he or she should do to get ahead in this game?
I think two, three things which will be very helpful is be very aware of what's happening in the industry. Whether it would, all of these organizations are very active on LinkedIn. Like follow SAP, follow Oracle, follow Ariba. Like all of them have their own LinkedIn. Like there's different organizations very specific to procurement, very specific to supply chain. They all release their magazines, which are free as well. Procurement.com releases their own magazines. Supplychain.com releases their own magazine as well. So there's a lot of articles out there talking about what technologies is coming, what modules are being added. A lot of people, I assume, are aware with SAP and their offering. Be very understand how SAP is working, how their modules are, what are the different modules they're offering. Especially SAP over the last few years have transitioned from their legacy ECC to S4 HANA, which is their current
Correct.
new ERP system. What's different? What's happening? What are the new modules that are coming out? Even with spend management, what are the different modules that's happening? How is that different from what is there previously? There's a bunch of multiple articles. I think reading and understanding is very important. Second thing is attend conferences, attend any kind of speaker sessions very specific to certain tools. A lot of these organizations, if you now, LinkedIn has this feature where they'll show you all the events that are happening. Consulting firms as well as these kind of firms all have specific sessions, online sessions, where they talk about newer technologies in the space, who is making groundbreaking progress, what are the top 50, 100 technologies out there. I think you should spend some time like going through their website, understanding what's happening. How is it different from the nascent tools that are there? How is ServiceNow different from Ariba? How is Oracle's or NetSuite different from SAP? Those kind of things, right? So having a clear understanding of that and where each module sits in the source to pay whole cycle is very important, I would say.
Definitely, it helps people a lot to. Those articles are very good. Like if you go into those conferences, and if you are in some companies, like you're in, then company also sponsor a couple of those for you.
Yep,
So
yep. So
definitely.
yeah, so like EY does a lot. We get to attend conferences based on which role we are doing or based on what's required for us. But yeah, I think as someone who's coming in fresh, just having a base level understanding, like a lot of people struggle to understand the difference between an ERP system and just a procurement or a contracting system. Like the ability to differentiate between that, like what's actually doing your contracting, like an Adobe sign or a DocuSign, versus what's your ERP, which actually stores your base level systems,
Correct.
like tables inside that. Like it's very important to understand, right? Like what's a vendor master, what's a material master, what's the difference between those, how does that work, how do you create like T tables out of it, how do you create like reports. Like you don't have to learn how to do it, but at least know like what is the process that's happening to like
Yeah.
get through this. And when you want to request something, some kind of information, who do you ask and what kind of information you should be asking. And I
Correct.
think if you have this much knowledge or you do this much research, I think you're already in the top 5% or top 1% of the applicants that are there when it comes to
True.
supply chain.
Definitely. So now I want to take you a couple of years back, which is like when you were in a college and you were applying for internships. So I want to know, how did you strategize your way on like how to apply for internships, how you created resume, networking helped you, those kind of things, so that you ended up landing in job in Dell.
Yeah, I wish it was 2 years ago. I was applying for my internships almost 5 years ago.
5 years, sorry, yeah, 5 years ago, yeah. Because I remember I was just joining when you were leaving Northeastern, correct?
Yeah, I wish it was 2 years ago.
Yeah, five.
It's been what I graduated in 21. Seems like time
Correct.
flies, but yeah. So I think I was when I joined Northeastern, I was hyper focused. I'm not gonna lie. Like I recently was at Northeastern as well. We had a career panel talk, and people had very different views of their generalistic approach where they applied based on what came across. But I was very, very hyper focused, where I knew I wanted to get into consulting. And regardless of what the opinions I got from people that hey, it's tough getting into consulting from a master's, or it's tough to get if you don't have an MBA, it's tough to get into consulting. I was very clear on that path and that I wanted to get into consulting. And when it came to applications, at least I was very blessed. Northeastern had a really good career portal, and they are known for their co-op programs. So I would specifically apply to anything that felt close to a consulting role on their portal, as well as I had a list of top 10, 15 organizations that were my dream organizations, that I would check their career portals regularly and apply directly on their website. So that was the strategy. I think I came in spring. The reason why I came in spring is so that I can get the summer break, the 4 months in between, before I apply for my co-op cycle. So that gives me a whole 8 months before I can prep. I can clean up my resume. I can clean up my cover letter. I can do all the homework before I get into the cycle. I realized coming in fall, it just gives you just 4 months to get acclimatized to United States. You'll be coming in the winter as well. When it's
Yeah.
fall and winter, you need to get used to the weather. There's a lot of things that are happening. You might get an on campus or a part time job, which will also create distractions. And then within that 4 months, you start for a job hunt. So spring was what I really wanted to come in so that I can get that gap of 8 months. That's when I did all my pre work. I applied for some summer internships internationally, because you can't do a co-op in your first month. You need to finish 2 semesters before you can get this application in, which I didn't get any compelling offers that I wanted to go outside of United States. So I just continued driving some of my resume, cover letters, networking, talking to people. But I was done with my application process, I would say, within August and September. So I'd done almost, I would say, around 100 very specific applications of what I wanted to like build. I started getting a lot of calls from that, and then I stopped applying. I just continued with the calls that I was getting, and eventually Dell felt like a place that was offering a role that I needed. Internal consulting. I wanted to be an internal consultant for them, and I took up that offer. And yeah, when I came back, I got a full time offer from them, and I still continue to interview, but my H1B got picked up while I was in grad school itself. So I just
Understood.
continued with Dell.
That's nice to know, because it's one of the things that people are very scared of. Like, because right now I think the time is like many companies have stop doing H1Bs kind of thing, and now many people are on this phase like how to get that. So it was, I think that was very good time when you graduated or when I graduated, because the time is very different right now.
Yep. And a lot of people don't know is like, even I didn't know. I'm thankful to one of my friends actually who told me to do this. But he had told me that, hey, organizations actually sponsor your H1B. They'll put you in the lottery even before you graduate, especially if you're graduating, like within 2 to 3 months after the application goes in. So the March. So if you're graduating in May, organizations can actually go in and put your lottery, which counts as your zeroth attempt. So that gives you three more attempts after that. So that's how I got my H1B picked while I was still in grad school. So like March, I was still in my final semester when they put in the application, and end of March, April was when I got to know that H1B was picked up. So I was still interviewing at other places, but I pretty much dropped all the interviews. I let them know that, hey, like I got my H1B picked and I would be going with Dell, like without any questions. So
Yeah,
there's no
definitely.
negotiation there, right? So
Yeah,
it's like there's nothing that's going to change over there. So yeah.
correct. That's true.
Yeah, but yeah,
Yeah,
like Dell wasn't doing it though. It was not something that they were like, they said they will do it only after I joined. But I think when she said to ask at least, and I asked, and that's when they just did it, I think it worked out really well. I'm thankful for Dell for doing it, of course. But yeah, if
yeah,
somebody had not told me that that's even an option, I think I would have not even realized that. So
that's true.
that's an option, but it requires you to have an offer letter that you've signed prior to like
Correct.
your application. That's very
That's
important.
definitely. So my next question is somehow related to this, which is so that if you see the time right now, it's like very hard for freshers who are just graduating to get a job because I hear from people like they have applied to like 2,000, 5,000 jobs and just got like 8 interviews, something like those. And that's the case with many people I know I met on day-to-day basis. So like how they can make like their like what they can do better like in terms of resumes or like what they can do to put those things out there so that they can have a bit more chances.
Right. Firstly, very generic advice, apply early. Set up
Yeah,
alerts. When job roles land, like be the first ones to apply. If you're not in the top 50, top 100 applicants, don't even look at it. When the job, especially LinkedIn has that feature, if you see more than like 100, 200 applicants, don't even apply to it. Very
yeah,
honest. It's a waste of time. Like, until unless like the job is like you have a lot of time and like you've finished all your other applications, come back and apply, but that shouldn't be a priority. In terms of standing out, networking is very important. I got my EY job through networking. Like somebody referred me in there, they know that there was an opening and they talked to somebody internal and they reached out to me. Similarly, I think setting up those connections is very important, especially when you're starting off. That 2 years, 2.5 years in grad school, you're not going to get that much time once you graduate
yeah,
from. Spend that time talking to people. Now, when I say talking to people, I see a lot of mistakes that happen. I get hundreds of messages, right? Like on LinkedIn, you must have also
correct.
get two messages which I blatantly ignore are, hey, I'm looking for a job at EY. Can you refer me there? Or here is my resume. I'm looking for a job. Can you refer me there?
Yeah,
I don't think I'll, even if I open it, I don't think I'll reply to it. Like,
correct.
because firstly, I don't see any effort from you. You're literally copy pasting, right? When there are others who are doing much better. And secondly, if I have time, yeah, of course, I will try to get to it. But when there's so many people messaging, the ones that will stand out are the ones which you will reply back to, right? Two, three things that have always stood out to me, and one was very recent is one person reached out to me with a very specific question about supply chain that he's received over time in different interviews that he wanted to brainstorm and check on how should he be answering it. Very specific to supply chain. Like very interesting. I was like, yeah, let's jump. I literally gave him my personal number. We jumped on a call the next day and we talked about strategizing on how to answer that very specific question.
Correct.
What are the industry examples that you should be giving? Like we give very simple examples like an iPhone related back to the product and try to like sieve it out and try to figure out like how do you answer that very specific question, right? Other one is where someone's taken some time to like do some research about me. They've seen something, whether it would be my podcast or whether it would be some of my work. They have like gone in and done that research and picked out a very specific item and be like, hey, I've done some research and this is what I want to like ask about. In that, they've built a relationship. When I've had a conversation, I've known a lot of people, those who've worked out really well and I'm still in touch with are the ones who have like not asked for a referral straight up. They've built a
Correct.
meaningful connection and then over time they're like, hey, we might have something that might like that is of interest for us in EY. Can you help us with that? Right. So I think take that 2.5 years to figure out like build those connections, like build that network that will help you throughout after you graduate, right? And not with the intention of getting a job out of it, and once you get a job like you just forget about them, right?
Yeah,
Like build a connection that like you would build across, where whether it would be like a mentor, whether it would be like a friend, try to like reach out in that way. It's very easy to see people's intention where it's temporary or where they're actually genuinely trying to understand what's happening and then try to figure it out. So in those 2.5 years, when you're not in that crunch of like I have a timeline and I need to get a job between that, try to build those relationships, right? Build, maybe meet one or two people on LinkedIn, every week, or three if you're more hyperactive like I am, like maybe build like three, like five people every week, right? Like,
Yeah,
and those are the relationships that's helped. So I think as someone who's graduating, I think that's what something you should be doing. And even if you have a few months left, try to get that really right. And the second thing is, we already touched upon, right, being aware of technology changes that's happening,
correct,
reading current state affairs. Like, you would be surprised when the ship, the Everstream ship, got stuck on the Panama Canal. A lot of people didn't know about it. Like,
correct.
they don't even know the implications of what's happening. It's a massive thing that's happening. Why is Panama Canal even important in the whole logistics of supply chain?
Logistics system, yeah.
Is very important. Especially, it's as interviewers, as soon as we talk to somebody, we quickly realize who's actually passionate about supply chain and who's not. And I know this, the audience might be, since we both are like, I've coming from our masters, like the audience might be a role more related to your masters. If you're from
Yeah,
an undergrad, it doesn't matter. We don't expect somebody to be focused because you're just trying to figure it out. But masters is where you're specializing, right? You
correct.
should be very specific. You should be specialized in a very certain niche area. Even if you're doing a generalistic course like engineering management, you should be still specialized. If you're not talking very specifics and you're talking generalistic things, that's not going to help your cause. So take up certain modules that you truly understand, whether it would be digital, whether it
Yeah,
would be procurement, whether it will be as close as lean, right? So how do I
correct.
do lean in every area? So that's something you should clearly identify and try to focus on that.
And I think that's definitely true, that Panama Canal thing you said, because like I asked that question in my interview during Wayfair where I got my like full time like co-op. So I asked, like, when there is last, they asked like, do you have any questions for us? So
Right.
in that time I asked this question, like, this Panama Canal thing happened and how did it affect Wayfair supply chain capability and how did you handle those things? Like, as a supply chain newcomer, I want to know all those. So I think those were a couple of questions which sets you apart from
Exactly.
asking those general questions like, how is their work culture out there?
Yeah, exactly. And like, that Wayfair has some kind of warehousing in Europe. Like, they
Correct.
will be having some kind of ship-based transportation. They won't be using
Asia.
air
Yeah.
for everything because that's more expensive. So
Correct.
definitely the Panama Canal issue would have affected their supply chain, right?
Yeah.
So it's a very smart question to ask. Those are the
Yeah.
things that help you convert, or those are things that pique someone's interest. So, and if you're
Correct.
not aware of those basic things, you're just like, hey, I'm like, I just want to keep applying jobs. I'll keep using the same resume. That's not going to get you somewhere. It
Yeah.
might, luck plays a big factor. You might land up a job, but if you're struggling, definitely like think back and look at like how your approach has been and try to change it. It's never too late. So change up that approach. That's what's
Yeah,
important.
definitely. Like, to think, like, talk about things like East Coast strike was there couple of months back. So those kind of things. So definitely, thanks
And
for
even like,
sharing.
there was a bridge in Baltimore that broke and closed the
Yeah.
port, right? Like,
Correct.
how is that affecting? Like there's a lot of salt producers there. Does that impact? Like, if you're applying for a F&B organization, does that impact you?
Correct.
Are you going to be short of certain products because of it? So those are things that like you should be able to quickly churn out, right? And these are not things,
True.
I won't say like I'm sitting and reading every day, but like as soon as you see a headline, your brain should be able to connect those dots. And when you read more, you're able to do that. And that's what's
Correct.
important.
Yeah. So let's now, my next question is related to your extracurricular leadership activities that you did during your master's time. So you have received several awards for leadership and outstanding performance. So what advice would you give to students aiming to balance academics and extracurricular leadership?
I think extracurriculars is really important. People undermine it quite a bit. I think even in your organizations, once you get in, you need to have some kind of extracurriculars to grow in the organization. Everyone's doing the same job, right? But then what sets you apart is like those KPIs, like key performance indicators. What is the different ones that you're doing from everyone else that's out there? I think when I was in grad school, I was very clear that I wanted to hone my leadership skills. I wanted to make it better. Think about it, right? When you go into an organization or you'll start your own business, you will be a leader eventually, and that's why the stakes are higher. It's a real tangible money. There's real organizational goals that you're trying to hit, and there's a lot more on the line, including your job. You can get all of that experience for literally for free, and you will be able to like understand what kind of a leader you are by signing up for these organizations. It's literally a free coaching experience for you of what's going to happen in the future. And why would you not take it, right? Like, and people
Correct.
miss the point over there. And that's where I think if you see, even in the industry, a lot of good leaders to a lot of like even average or good leaders to a lot of brilliant leaders who people look up to are the ones who've been actively involved in some shape or form, like when they have been like developing themselves in the career, they've always put themselves in positions where they've been responsible for something, right? So I think I was very clear, and I've always been passionate about it, and I like doing things outside of my regular day-to-day domain as well. So leadership comes naturally to me, so I always signed up for things. So I think that's very important. And second piece is the friends and the network you make, right? Like when you're in such organizations, you meet like-minded people. You're in organizations who have the similar drive or similar churn. You'll meet people who come from different walks of life, who want to achieve, whether it would be similar kind of career goals or similar kind of ambitions or similar growth aspect, or in the same path you're there. So you can't get such connections if you're just sitting in your room and just like
True.
relaxing with your roommates or relaxing with your friends who you've made like in the first semester, and then you don't go out. And as an organization leader, like for example, you, right? I met you because I was part of those organizations.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we would have never connected. We would have
Corrected.
never had a personal connection at all. So
Sure.
those are things which are really important. And now, if I never made that person connection, I would have never maybe not been invited to have a podcast session with
Yeah.
you, right? So it's really important if you look at it from a long term perspective. These are the things that lead to opportunities. It will not, I won't say it definitely does, but it doesn't, like it opens up doors which can lead to somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's very important. Second thing, it keeps you fresh, right? You learn
True.
things, you meet people, you're interacting with people, you understand what's happening. Like I think it's a holistic growth. It's the
Yeah.
career path which should align yourself so that that personal growth is there along with your academic or other growth is that the
I think
knowledge.
yeah, I think that's what how most people see networking is as how I can get a referral from a person. That's how they see networking as. They don't see how 10% of a connection that I'm making will help me in like 5-10 years if I ask at
Exactly.
something. So
Yep.
like it's kind of an exponential thing. First we grow linearly and then it helps us exponentially
Exactly. Yeah,
out there.
and you shouldn't see, that's a thing, right? Like for example, when you talk to your parents, like, do you have an objective that I need to get this done from them? No,
Correct.
right? You're just establishing, or you're continuing to strengthen that bond you have because like it helps you. Or with your friends, right? Do you pick up your phone every day and you call them because like you have like a monetary gain from them or something? No, it's just
No.
because like, and these are the people who help you, right, in the future. Like maybe eventually when something happens or something doesn't happen and you don't
Yeah.
need their help, that's fine
Yeah.
as well. But if there is something, you can definitely have a network that you can reach out to, and think about it that way, right? You don't have to like call someone every day. Nobody has time for it. But at least when you speak, don't come off as a person who like you're just talking to them because they are in a certain position or a
Yeah.
certain role, right? And I think leadership helps, right? So that's what, like, circulating it back, like when you are part of these organizations, you deal with different kind of people,
Correct.
personalities, different genders, different ages, different, all kinds of different, whether they come from different countries, different backgrounds, different ethnicities. That's what's going to be in your real life as well. And you've got to consider, as you become a leader, as you grow in the organization, you have to consider everyone's opinion, be able to listen and then act on it. So all of those skills you develop much before you get into those roles. And
Yeah.
it's very tough to develop them when you're in the role if you have not
True.
had this kind of
Yeah.
experience. So
And I think I talked similarly in my last podcast, which was like best place to network is party. It's like where you meet people easily without, it's not you are pushing yourself to meet people. And you meet those people in many parties continuously when you are in your masters.
yes, exactly. So, like, yeah, those are all networking sessions, right? There's some
Yeah.
pizza going on somewhere. Go grab a pizza. Don't just go there to grab a pizza. That's again just going for a monetary gain. See who else is there. Like, maybe
Yeah.
just meet one person. When you're grabbing,
Yeah.
nobody's saying don't grab a pizza. Grab two slices of pizza. But
Yeah.
meet one more person there, right? Talk to them. Understand. Maybe just understand why are they there. Like, are they there just for the pizza or are they there for something else? It's just a conversation, right? And sometimes, like, everyone wants to have that social interaction, but
Yeah.
nobody puts the first step forward, right?
Yeah.
First foot forward. So like, just do it. So
Definitely. I think I started coming for the graduate student government thing because of that pizza slices that you guys used to give when you were there. I was like, as a student, it's very hard to make food. And I was like, okay, I will get some pizza and meet some new people in that time. And that led to me being engaged in GSG and then worked with GSG for 2 years. So that
right.
pizza slice gets you there.
Yeah, that's all. So it is like, so the pizza slice is an add-on, but like
Yeah.
now, see, you've been given an opportunity over there. You
Correct.
can take the pizza slice and get out. Nobody's
Yeah.
going to say anything. Like
Yeah.
nobody's going to bat an eye. Or you can take the pizza slice and plus have an maybe establish
Yeah.
a conversation, meet somebody new. It might help
True.
you, might not, but at least you did something extra apart from that. You've gained
Yeah.
something without even like having to lose anything, right? Like
Yeah.
so that's
Yeah.
that's
Sure. So there are like last couple of questions. So if you could go back and give yourself one piece of advice to your as a student, what would it be?
Man, so many different things. I think every day is a real. It's such a hypothetical question. As a
Yeah.
student, on a lighter note, I would tell myself to buy a lot of Bitcoin. Like if I could go back, so or maybe invest a lot more in Nvidia. Like
Yeah.
those would be my
Yeah.
advice.
Dogecoin.
Yeah, yeah, like yeah, all of those are like solid advices. But I think when it came to Northeastern, I think I had a pretty much flawless journey. I'll be very honest. Like I think I pretty much nailed whatever I wanted to do. I was very clear on like, and that's where right. So even before I came for my masters, I spent a lot of time reflecting on what did I do wrong in my undergrad, or what are the things that I missed out on, or what are the steps I didn't take that could have helped me better. One easy example is leadership roles, right? So when I became the president of GSG and I continued staying the president of GSG, when I was in other organizations, which and genuinely I've always wanted to help people, and that's the reason why I've signed up for these things. And even in organizations in my undergrad, when I've signed up for things, I didn't step forward to take up the leadership role because I always felt someone else deserved it. Like I've always had an imposter syndrome where I've like, yeah, I can stay in the background, help them grow the organization because I'm the kind of guy who wants to do work and get work done and let someone else be the leader. In that process, I realized that maybe like me taking up the leadership role is going to push the organization to do better, bring more results. I can't not be in a position to like call the shot while like trying to do betterment for the organization or betterment for the people, right? So I was very clear on that. I didn't want to be a kingmaker anymore. I wanted to be the person who sits on the top and like runs the organization and like actually bring tangible changes, right? That was very clear. I can go into the details of how we got it done. Like
Yeah.
I've been very open about like even my LinkedIn has very clear objectives that we set at the start of the year. I was very public about what I achieved over the year and what we got out. But yeah, apart from that, like those are things, right? So I reflected on my undergrad journey and I was very clear these are things I don't want to do and these are things I want to do. I was
Yeah.
I was very sure. And that's what helped me get to a place like at Northeastern and achieve all the things I did, right? Like even to be the first graduate or the first Indian commencement speaker for Northeastern, it's a big honor. Like those are things I didn't even imagine, and I'm grateful for Northeastern to be able for me to provide that platform for me. But like all of those things put together, I think just that reflection was very important. And I think if I could go back and tell people, I would say reflect every point in your life, even as a 22-year-old, 24-year-old, you'll have that understanding of what I did wrong. If you don't understand that, then spend more time, take your time, figure it out. Like what if you're already very happy with where you are, then don't just continue on doing it. But if you are not, try to figure out what did you do and try to change it. Make sure you make that change, otherwise it's not going to get you anywhere. How you do that change, that depends on a lot of variabilities. I talked to a lot of people, got different data points, I figured it out, and then I made my decision on how I want to change it. But that reflection is very important. And
Yeah.
even now, right, like I would say I've been the most happiest I've ever been when it comes to my career. Like I don't reflect much. I think EY is
Yeah.
the place where I want to stay long term. But eventually there will be a time where I will not feel that way. I will reflect. What did I where did I do wrong? Should I have got out of here earlier? Should I have made a switch in my department? Should I have moved into a different role? Those are things, right? That's a reflection is very important. And doing that at the right time or recognizing that I need to do it is critical as well.
So, just last question is which book would you recommend people in supply chain that they should read?
Books, right? So I think the Nike founders book, I don't remember the name on top of my head. So Shoe
Okay.
Dog, I think that's the book's name. So that's really good. Like you got a lot of leadership principles from there. Regardless if you're someone who's trying to get into supply chain, especially if you're getting into supply chain consulting, case by point. That's the case study book. That should be a Bible that you should go by. I think everyone should read it, especially if you're not good at case studies. Like take some time, figure it out. Apart from that, I don't think I generally don't like non-fiction books. I'm a very fiction fantasy related books. Like I love reading books. I still love reading about dragons and those kind of things. So like that's where I spend most of my time reading. Very honestly, I don't think like there's a list of books that are important. There's so much article, there's so much content being churned
Yeah.
out there on the internet. Like there are so many Instagram pages which have just tidbit of posts that like they post about like supply chain, what's happening every day, what's changing. There's like pages like Supply Chain Daily, which gives you updates every day about what's happening. Something. Read the headlines. That's literally what you need. You don't need to sit and digest a book. Like all of the, like if you're interested, yeah, go for it. Like these are some of
Yeah.
these books that are theoretically important for you to like get an understanding. But I would recommend, like if you like supply chain or if you want to get into it, read articles. Like there are lots of good websites churning out really good content. So that's where I would start.
And so last is how can listeners connect with you or learn more about you?
LinkedIn, like yeah, reach out to me on LinkedIn. My LinkedIn name is Gagan Dev Prabhu, as Samyak introduced me as. So yeah, reach out. Be very specific. Yeah, I'm not going to reply to you if you have a generic. Here's my resume. Give me a job. Like I'm not going to search on the career portal for you and be like, hey, I think these are the jobs that you should be applying to. I don't think anyone will be doing it. I don't think your parents might even do it for you.
Yeah.
If they're doing it, there's something fundamentally wrong in the whole system, right? You
Right.
should be doing it for yourself. Like go find a job. And I'm telling you, even in the generic questions, if someone finds me a referral and tells me I want a referral for this specific position, I go in and do it. Like, but at least do some homework before you message me, right? So that's what I would say. Similar to Samyak, I have a podcast, but I don't have a video podcast. I have a very specific, very short 10-minute podcast where I talk about very specific supply chain concepts. Yeah, if you're interested, go through it. I think most of my second season was very focused towards like concepts which freshers or, as you said, new coming supply chain enthusiasts don't understand or struggle to understand. So yeah, still this 10 episodes, go through it. A lot of quick content to digest. Like if you don't like reading, you can listen to it as well. So that's another place. Yeah, or come to conferences or northeastern meetups. I'll generally most probably be there. Ask me questions there. I'm open to like conversations, and yeah, we can definitely meet in this place.
Thank you so much for your time, Gagan, and explaining all those things you've done and how people can use those to help them in their careers. So thank you so
Yeah,
much.
no, thank you, Samyak, for having this platform for people to come in and learn and understand. Like, it takes a lot. I know people don't thank you enough, but it takes a lot of effort for the things you've been doing. Like, I've been seeing you like grow in LinkedIn and like help people out. Not a lot of people take the time to do it. So I think people should be really thankful for you for you're doing all of this. I don't think you receive enough accolade as you should be. Like, it takes a lot of effort to do what you're
Yep.
doing. Keep up the good work. I would say we
Yeah.
are just helping you with this
Yeah.
journey. We
No.
are just enabling you, very honestly. So keep it up, like help as many people as you can. And I would suggest people to be more thankful and grateful for people like Samyak who are doing such content out there. So like, yeah, keep up the
Thank you
good work.
so much. Thank you so much for your kind appreciation. Goodbye.